All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, honor, glory to YAHAWAH, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, Wadash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles, the great millstone that taught us this truth. And salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. And the elect begins with the 144,000. Yahweh, who the world ignorantly calls God and Jehovah. BAHASHAM is in the name. YAHAWASHI, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. The Rakak, or Dr. Chist, Holy Spirit. On the brother I will lump you with the GMS Chicago branch out here in Chicago. Come back at you with another lesson. And Lord, I hope this lesson be edifying through the spirit and power of YAHAWASHI. Just really going over Revelation 6, primarily starting at verses 13 all the way, verses 12 all the way to the end. I was just thinking about, this, these few verses. I just really wanted to go over it. It's going to be, really straight into the point. So I'm going to just start it off. This is the book of Revelation 6 and verse 12. It says, "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake." And right, that great earthquake is ultimately going to happen when those missiles hit Babylon the Great, because it talks about what in Isaiah 24. Let's grab it real quick. How ultimately, the earth is going to shake. By the what? All those missiles basically touching down on America and destroying this place, man. The whole earth is going to feel it. So this is the book of Isaiah 24 and verse 19. I'm gonna start at verse 18. Isaiah 24 and 18, it says, "And it shall come to pass that he who fleeth from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit, and he that cometh up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare, for the windows from on high are open, and the foundations of the earth do shake." It says the earth is utterly broken down. It says the earth is clean. It says the earth is clean dissolved. It says the earth is moved exceedingly. And right, how is that going to ultimately happen, man? When these missiles hit Babylon the Great, and it's going to cause that great earthquake, man. And the whole earth is going to feel, the effects of the destruction of Babylon the Great, which is America, man. The whole earth is going to feel it, man, because so many missiles are going to be hitting America that ultimately the earth is going to feel it. It's going to shake. It says, verse 20, it says, "The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard," right? Because when you see a drunkard or somebody that's drunk, what do? They rattle back and forth, man. Ultimately trying to get their balance, but they're all over the place when they're drunk. They have no type of balance. And that's ultimately what the earth is going to, be like, man. It's going to shake, It says, where am I? Verse 20. It says, "The earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard, and shall be removed like a cottage, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again." Right? Because we know that America is ultimately going to be a desert, man. The scriptures say this place is going to be burning from generations to generations. But ultimately, what? That great earthquake is going to happen by the way of those missiles being shot on the, on America, and ultimately, what? The earth, shaking from the effects, of the missiles that's hitting this place, man. Babylon the Great, which is America. The whole earth is going to feel it. The whole earth is going to shake, man. So, let's go back into that Revelation 6. Revelation 6 and 12, it says, "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake." And we read over in that Isaiah 24, how ultimately that this place is going to, reel to and fro like a drunkard, man. "And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood." It says verse 13, it says, "And the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casteth her untimely figs when she is shaken of a mighty wind." Right. Those stars is talking about the missiles, because you got to understand how the way the prophets of old describe, the missiles, for an example, what's that? Second Esdras, the 16th chapter, Ezra, the prophet Ezra described, the missiles as what? Arrows, arrows being shot into the ends of the world. And how did John the Revelator ultimately describe what he was seeing? He described them what? As stars, man, And it looks exactly like that, because ultimately when these missiles are shot into the atmosphere, you look, up above, in the atmosphere, what does it look like? It looks like a star coming down, man. That's how ultimately John the Revelator ultimately described the missiles, man. So Revelation 6 and 13 says, "And the stars of heaven fell into the earth," right? Talking about those missiles, "even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs," right? Because when you look at a fig tree, it's ultimately what? It curves. And that's what those missiles are going to do when it comes down. It's going to basically what? Be shot into the air, and it's going to what? It's going to curve down and hit its target, man. And its target being what? Babylon the Great, which is America. Verse 13, it says, and the stars of heaven fell into the earth, even as a fig tree casting her untimely figs, when she is shaken another mighty wind. Right? What is that mighty wind, man? That thermonuclear fire, man. That destruction. Let's get this. This is the book of Jeremiah 51:1. It says, thus saith the Lord Yahawah, behold, I will raise up against Babylon and against them that dwell in the midst of them that rise up against me a destroying wind. And right, talking about what? Babylon the Great, which is America, man. Let's continue. Right, that destroying wind being what? Those thermonuclear missiles, that destroying wind, that thermonuclear destruction, that thermonuclear fire, man. It says, verse 2, and will send unto Babylon fanners that shall fan her and shall empty her land, for in the day of trouble they shall be against her round about. Right, because ultimately, what we know that these other nations, starting with Russia and even America's own allies, because if you read Revelation 17, it talks about the beast shall hate the whore. Everybody is going to turn their missiles on America. It says, verse 3, against him that bendeth let the archer bend his bow, and against him that lifteth himself up in his brigandine, and spare ye not her young men, destroy ye utterly all her hosts. Right, that's destroying wind. Talking about that thermonuclear destruction, man. Because like I said, everybody's missiles is going to be turned on America, man. Even America's own allies, man. That destroying wind, being that thermonuclear destruction, that thermonuclear fire, man. And that's what's ultimately what's going to happen to this place, man. But let's continue in this Revelation 6. It says, verse 14. It says, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it is rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Right. It says, and the heaven departed as a scroll. And what is that scroll, man? Talking about that mushroom cloud, man. As you can see, what happened when that atomic bomb was ultimately let loose on Hiroshima and Nagasaki? What was the end result of that? It resulted in it formed what? A mushroom cloud, man. But with this thermonuclear destruction, man, hey, this mushroom cloud is going to be way bigger on another scale, man. This is what this is talking about, man. That mushroom cloud, man. Ultimately what? And this is a better example of it right here. Because ultimately when the missiles hit America, it's going to form a big what? Mushroom cloud, man. But let's go back to those precepts I had listed up. Just to use that as an example, when it says, and the heavens departed as a scroll, right? Talking about that mushroom cloud. So Revelation 6:14 says, and the heaven departed as a scroll when it's rolled together, and every mountain and island were moved out of their places. Right. Because what? As I read in Isaiah 24, that great earthquake, man, it's going to rattle the earth. And the earth is going to rattle to and fro like a drunkard, as I read in Isaiah 24, man. Things is going to be removed out of their places. You're going to have tsunamis. You're going to have, a lot of destruction, man. Mountains is literally going to be removed out of their places, man. For the mass destruction, that these missiles are going to do to America. The world is going to be fucked up, man. But America is going to be 100% destroyed. It says, verse 15, it says, and the kings of the earth, and the great man, and the rich man, and the chief captains, and the mighty man, and every bondman, and every free man hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains. Right. These elites, starting with these elites, these different rich individuals, man, they're going to hide themselves. That's why you have, these individuals have what? These bunkers underground, underground cities, basically cities under the water. This is what Esau Edom has been building, for a long time to ultimately what? To escape the judgment. And they are going to escape the judgment, man. Let's grab that, to prove that point. This is the book of Jeremiah 16:16. Let's grab that. Jeremiah 16:16, it says, behold, I will send for many fishers, saith Yahawah, and they shall fish them. And after will I send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. Because what? They got underground cities. Talking about these elite Edomite families. They got underground cities, man. They got basically what? Different dens, different shelters, built in within the foundations of the earth, man. Esau Edom has things like this, man, to ultimately what? To escape the destruction, man. But it says what? The Lord is going to send for many hunters. The Lord is going to raise us up to ultimately what? To go after them, man. The elect men. Lord, when we be of that number? Let's get another one. This is the book of Amos 9:1. It says, I saw the Lord standing upon the altar, and he said, smite the lintel of the door, that the post may shake, and cut them in the head, all of them, and I will slay the last of them with the sword. He that fleeth of them shall not flee away, and he that escapeth of them shall not be delivered. Though they dig into hell, right, talking about the grave, though they dig into hell, thence shall my hand take them. Thence, though they climb up to heaven, thence will I bring them down, right? Because like I said before, as I read in that Jeremiah 16:16, Esau Edom has these different underground cities, these different underground bunkers, to ultimately what? To escape from the destruction that's to come. Verse 2, it says, though they dig into hell, thence shall my hand take them. Though they climb up to heaven, thence will I bring them down. And though they hide themselves in the top of Carmel, I will search and take them out thence. And though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, right? Because even Esau Edom has what? These different underground, cities under the water, different things like that. He's been building for a long time, like I said, to escape from the destruction. It says, though they be hid from my sight in the bottom of the sea, thence will I command the serpent, and he shall bite them, right? Talking about Leviathan, man. The great, sea serpent, man. Talking about Leviathan, man. And so these devils ultimately have nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, man. They're going to hide and flee to these different underground cities, these different bunkers that they ultimately have built up, man. But what? There's going to be no escape. It says, verse 16, it says, and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, right? So ultimately what? They're going to ultimately hide in these different underground cities, underground shelters. But what? YAHAWASHI, Yahweh's going to send his son YAHAWASHI back to ultimately what? To put these devils into captivity, man. It says, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, right? That Lamb being YAHAWASHI, man. Because in John, let's prove that real quick. In John 1, I'm going to start at, point is in verse 29, but I'm going to start at, verse 26. John 1:26, it said, John answered them saying, I baptize with water, but there standeth one among you whom ye know not. Right, talking about YAHAWASHI. He it is who coming after me is preferred before me, whose shoes latchet I am not worthy to unloose. These things were done in Bethabara beyond Jordan, where John was baptizing. It says the next day John seeth YAHAWASHI coming unto him and saith, behold the Lamb of Yahweh. It says, behold the Lamb of Yahweh. Who is the Lamb of Yahweh? YAHAWASHI. Behold the Lamb of Yahweh, which taketh away the sin of the world. And right, the Lamb is what? Synonymous with sacrificing. Who is the Lamb, man? The Lamb is YAHAWASHI. And also what? The Lord, was ultimately crucified on the cross, for ultimately what? The remission of sins, for the nation of Israel, starting with the elect, But that was pretty much the point, just to prove the Lamb being YAHAWASHI, But let's finish this out and I'm going to close out. It says, verse 16, it says, he said unto the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, right? The wrath of the Lamb, talking about YAHAWASHI, man. Because it talks about, YAHAWASHI had many crowns upon his head, man, because YAHAWASHI is coming back to take what is his, man. He's coming back to take these Edomites out of power and to put these damn devils into captivity along with the rest of the nations, man. The Lord is coming back to judge. YAHAWASHI is coming back to judge, man. It says, verse 17, it says, for the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? Right. If you're not a part of the elect, man, you're going to be destroyed. But that was pretty much, just going over the few, these few verses, from verse 12 all the way down to verse 17. So Lord willing, I hope this lesson was edifying. I want to end up by giving all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, YAHAWAH. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of great millstone that taught us this truth. And salutations to the hopeful elect that's around the four corners of the globe. Lord willing, I hope this lesson was edifying. Until next time, Kwam Yasharallah, Shalom, and a Baba Ball. Until next time, Lord willing.